Hello, welcome to the Situation Corner. My name is Elizabeth Zipora Akol. For those that are just joining in, the Situation Corner is a show that brings you a youthful perspective of everything, be it current affairs, business, lifestyle, and all that affects the youth. Today on the show, we have two lovely people, a gentleman and a lady. And in today's topic, we are going to talk about the fate of education amidst the pandemic and post the pandemic. So I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves before we kick start off with today's episode. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
As they always say, ladies first. Let's start with the lady.
Ladies and gentlemen watching, my name is Anita Rachel, CEO Anita's Jewelry. Just graduated with a bachelor's in industrial and organizational psychology from Makerere University. And yes, I'm glad to be a part of this show.
Thank you very much and welcome aboard, Anita. Yes, please.
Yes, pleasure to be here. My name is Niwarinda Aaron. I'm a lawyer by profession. I've just graduated from law school. I'm a founder at Action Frontiers, a non-profit that works with youth on issues pertaining climate, gender equality. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. I am so honored to sit with a CEO and an ED. so honored. Okay, so now let's kickstart off with our topic of discussion. We are looking at the fate of education amidst the pandemic and post the pandemic. If we are to realize, we'll find that ever since the Uganda got the pandemic, that is in 2020, March, education was put on a standstill. Yeah. However, as time went on, we found that institutes of higher learning adopted to the e-learning, but not everyone fully adopted to it. You find that the primary, the secondary, and the baby class people, for lack of a better word, were sitting home all throughout. But in the middle of the pandemic, as Uganda was trying to recover back, get back into track amidst the pandemic, you find that schools were opened. But then, class by class, were let into school. However, universities adopted the same thing, but at the back of their minds, they are coming up with the e-learning. So, in our perspectives, the first phase of the lockdown and the second phase of the lockdown, how have you found the education system?
For the very first time, of course, it was something new, and it was quite hard for all the students to adapt to.
True.
Yeah. However, I'll say most of them tried, most especially the teachers, the heads of institutes. Like, they tried so much to make sure these students adapt to the e-learning. But this time around it's even worse, because back then it was easy to make the students adapt to the e-learning, but this time around, it can still work, but we well know what is happening with the internet these days. It's so costly, and remember, in the past lockdown, not everyone had a gadget to even access the e-learning or anything. Yeah, but we could say fair, because for those that had, at least the internet was a bit fair and data was affordable. But this time around it's even worse, because not everyone can afford data. And it's like, it's so high. Even a few that could afford cannot. We are, like, parents are not even working to provide the data to their kids. So I think it's getting worse every now and then. I don't know what the education sector has for us, but I'm scared, I'm worried.
Oh, wow. Aaron, what do you have to say about it?
You see, the first lockdown was a shocker to to the entire education sector, because schools were locked down in March, and personally, from a personal experience, I was in my final semester at university, and we had to go home for approximately 4 to 5 months. Then we had to resume around October and do sort of a quick nap of what was left to cover, and December we finished. But I remember during the lockdown, some of the institutions that could afford tried to adopt the online learning, but the ministry did not welcome it, because they felt it was going to bring about inequality. A lot of students were not going to access some of these online platforms. So it was sort of put at a standstill. But in my opinion, it should have been a learning experience for the ministry and for the education sector as a whole. So when we come into the second lockdown, we are facing the same challenges we faced during the first lockdown. So it shows that, or even worse, so it shows that we've not learned, we've not appreciated some of the experiences from the first lockdown. And it's a terrible thing.
Okay, it's a terrible thing either way. But when we look at it in a more broader perspective, we are supposed to adopt to all these things. When you decide to adopt to online studies, you're practically adopting to technology, because technology keeps on expounding day in, day out. So as I believe you've also previously graduated.
Yeah.
How did you manage to pull through?
Well, of course,
we want to look at it in your personal perspective, because yes, we are aware not everyone has these fancy gadgets that would help us accomplish our learning. Some majority of students in the universities traveled back to their villages when schools were closed. But now, in your personal view, how did you manage to pull through? Because graduation is not that easy.
of course it's not.
But at least you did graduate. How did you pull through?
Well, besides even the e-learning part and using gadgets and all that, it's really depressing. It is stressing, because we have to agree that we come from different backgrounds, different homes. So you imagine that the schools are closed and you have to go back to the village. Probably you're starting some other things that will divert you from the entire school life. Yeah, so because we reached a point we did not have hope of when we are going back to school, and you kind of forget about each and everything. I remember we went back and you had to start afresh. Even what you had read, you couldn't. I personally didn't know where my handouts were. I didn't know where to start from. Like, it was a fresh start of a new semester. So it's really stressing. And like you said, some students went to the villages. And of course you meet some other challenges. Most of us, anyway, I won't say most of us, personally, I left campus. I left that semester without finishing my tuition. Your parents are seated home because my mother is a teacher. And they weren't teaching, they're actually the most hit people. So the tuition is not yet finished. You have to go back, and it is your final semester, and no one cares. If you don't get the tuition, you're not sitting for exams. And of course, most students weren't able to sit for the exams. Other people weren't able to make it from the villages back here. We could talk about transport. Imagine transport being an issue, your tuition is not even finished. So some people did not graduate simply because of that. Other girls, of course, came pregnant. Some of those that could make it here, because of the different situations. Like I told you, we come from different families and we have different challenges. So it's really disturbing. It was really hard for me. Like I told you, it was like a fresh start. Yeah, so you kind of get diverted depending on the environment and the situation you'll be in, most especially during the lockdown. So I imagine what all the students are going through right now. And now that the internet is not...
it's not that the one.
Yeah, for everyone.
And quite expensive.
Yeah, really expensive.
I can't imagine, but that's what I went through.
Aaron, would you want to take us through?
Well, most of what we went through was new, because at one point we adopted an online learning. Maybe a lecturer could come on a WhatsApp group and send audios or send a long text, and you read through and pose questions. But you know, our education system has shaped us in a way that it's more of interactive. If you're not in touch with your teacher, then you're probably detached from the reality of what you're studying. I recently saw a meme that one person was constructing a bent house, and they were saying, when you finally graduate with a Zoom degree. So it's really terrible. It shows the fear and the inequality and the substandard work that comes with online teaching, because of how we've appreciated the system. So from my experience, most of it that was online was not as engaging until we had to reopen, and some of the lecturers opted to take us through some of these things. But as we know, the lockdown was so depressing, and we know the role schools play in young people's mental health, in keeping them occupied, in providing them a platform to engage. So it was really depressing for some of my friends. For me as well, at some point you feel, oh God, when am I just going to get done with this thing and move on to the next life? And I should have enrolled maybe for LDC at that time when I'd finished law school, but I've had a delay, sort of a setback, for maybe now another 8 months, and I have to wait for the next intake, which is I think August, to join. So from my personal experience, it delayed some of my dreams, but it also wasn't as good for my own mental health, because I understand the kind of engagement I had at school and home. Yeah.
It's quite difficult. Well, we'll come to appreciate the fact that either way, we graduated, right? Because also there are memes that were going around of ka degree ka corona kaganye over kakaye. But either way, on the 21st of June, the executive director of the National Council for Higher Learning had a press release out, and they were appreciating the fact, okay, they were giving a go-ahead to institutes that have already adopted to e-learning. If they have examinations, they should go through with the examinations. If they have classes, they should go through with the classes. However, are the young people ready for this? In your perspective and in your experience, do you think the Ministry of Education or the National Council of Higher Education taking on e-learning, do you think it's a good tactic for us to complete our education? Is it really good for the Ugandan education?
I think it's good. We do not dispute the lockdown, because the lockdown helps in saving lives. It also helps in reducing contact of individuals, and it limits the spread of COVID-19. But the question should be, has the National Council for Higher Education ensured that those institutions are in place to conduct online learning? If a student at Uganda Christian University can access online learning, what happens to a student that is at Makerere University Business School? What happens to a student that is in an institute that is probably in an area that does not have quality network? So you see, on average, we have around 170,000 university students. These students, around 16.5% from a study, can access online learning and the internet. So I don't think it's viable. We need to do real investment. Really, it would be strange if we are investing in 200 million for cars for MPs, and we are battling with having to send children to school and risk them being infected. So we'd rather invest that money in technology, in making sure that some of these institutions, for example, the government, okay, let's say the private institutions could maybe afford to a certain extent to access some of the online education. How about the government institutions that literally depend on government? What are the government priorities in making sure that some of these students can go back to school and access online learning? So that should be the question, regardless of the statements from the National Council for Education, because we have to look at solutions that actually work.
But when you look at the statement from the National Council of Higher Education, their focus is on institutes of higher learning. Are they able to do the e-learning? If they are able, let them do it. If they are not able, what next? Because you'll find that, let's say, a particular university has different branches. Yes, but then branch A is doing this and branch B cannot do this because of the students that go to branch B. How are they going to adopt to it if they have given these universities a go-ahead with e-learning? But before we go to that, what do you think about the e-learning? The go-ahead for the e-learning?
Their suggestion is not bad, because at the end of it all, we need to adapt to the new technology and move on. We won't stay in one place. We have to learn and move on and adapt to the change. But it goes back to the preparation. How prepared are they? How have they prepared the students to adapt to this new whole thing? Besides, you're talking of higher institutions, but we all start from nursery, then primary, then high school. So what will happen to these other kids who are supposed to join in the high institutions you're talking about? And besides, if it's to do with the higher institutions, which is okay, is everyone able to, do they have the capacity to do what they want? Like, do they have the gadgets? Do they have a good network? Because talking about this is not about Kampala, which not every school in Kampala is doing good. We have to look at Kawale, we have to look at schools in Dira, Nakapilipiti, those schools that are very deep. Now, we are talking of network, we are talking of gadgets. Those people, some of them have not even heard of smartphones. Not even one in an entire village has a smartphone. So what do you think of those people? And besides, it's not about the high institutions, because at the end of it all, we all come from down and into up. So I think they would have planned, maybe in the past lockdown, try to work on that, try to devise means, instead of we shall keep thinking until we might be stressed. But even these young students, I have a sister of mine who has been stuck in Form 2 for now 2 good years. And this girl keeps asking you, but man, when are we going back to school? They are growing old every now and then. They don't know what is coming next. They are losing morale. Even kids in primary, they want to go back to school. So if these guys are still thinking of the higher institutions and not thinking of these other kids, we've seen on TV news, these young kids have started doing child labor, helping their parents to raise school fees. Now, if they sit home for more than 2 years, no hope, no what, don't you think they're going to give up? Because this mother, this father will be like, after all, you're good at doing this, maybe you could do business, and it will be easy for them. So I don't know, I wish I could do something, but I can't.
Back to her point, yes. on the affordability of online learning. Yes, we should look at it, but as government, what are we doing in our policy that will favor higher learning and online, through online engagement? A case in point is the 12% tax increment on the internet. You're scrapping OTT and you're bringing it back in the back door. And you're telling people to use online learning. But yes, the university could afford. But how many of these students, how many families can afford online learning? Parents are at home, they are not working. Internet is so costly. These children do not have any money to access some of these facilities. So who are you going to set up e-learning for if you're making it expensive on the side of students and you're telling the universities on the other side to adopt the system? So I think we should, as a society and as stakeholders and as government, we should not pretend about this. We should face the real issues. If it's about accessing education, let us make it about accessing education. Let us say that maybe the online platforms for some of these universities are free. We've seen before the Ministry of ICT promise free Wi-Fi across the country. There was quite a big budget for that, but it was not delivered as promised. So we could look at other things. How about accessing some of these university websites for free? Because the telecom companies can afford to do that. Once we can access those university websites for free, if I have my phone and I can just turn on the internet, I can access that website, access the learning material, and that is it. And it would be a little bit cheap for some of these people. But you also have to look at people who cannot access these gadgets. People who do not have laptops, people who do not have smartphones, and they are country and they do not have network. So all these are issues that come into perspective when you talk about e-learning. And it should be a comprehensive rebuild or from ground up to make sure that it's a system that works.
What can be done, both on an individual level, institution-wise, and plus the government? what do you think can be done to make sure we young people attain our education? Because as always they say, knowledge is power, and also education is key. So are we going to only base on the online studies, following the fact that our education system is built on a one-on-one interaction or physical interaction? How do you think our education can be better or made better in due course?
I think the main thing to look at is to explore strategies of a new learning system, that has the potential to be a game changer in our education system. But I think that education system has to look at 3 areas. It should be more inclusive for the marginalized. It should be effective for service delivery. People are able to access it in a more effective way. And it should be affordable to students. So once we look at that, then I think we shall solve the bigger question, because we are looking at expense, we are looking at service delivery, the quality of the education that is online, and of course, how inclusive is it? Does it look at the poor? Does it look at the disabled? Does it look at the other spheres or the other groups in society?
Are we sure that if the education system, the e-learning, is made affordable, are we sure that 100 is overrated, 98% of the students in a class will attend? Because we have had it firsthand. I've also been a student before. A class of 30 people, an attendance you'll find 15 or even 12. So are we sure that the reduction of, let's say, internet, scrapping off the tax, making sure the e-learning is affordable, are we sure that these young people will attain this education?
Of course, there are other issues that are underlying. For example, there is access to smartphones. It could be subsidized.
Which the government cannot cater for. We all know
Definitely
that.
It cannot. So we know that there is, but we know that there is a big portion of youth, of students, who have access at least to smartphones.
True.
Some are privileged to even have access to laptops. Well, it shouldn't be a privilege because it's a right, I think.
How is having a laptop a right again? Anyway, yes.
And I think, it's a right because on the global scale, everyone else is accessing quality education through use of gadgets, interacting with the computer and all that. And for the 21st century, really, it should be a right by now. But regardless, once we cannot guarantee that still all of these students will make it on board. There will be issues of learning how to use this thing, learning how to use this online platform. Some students will find it very hard for them to adopt to this new normal. But a fair share of students could, because we looked at statistics, only 16.5%. At least we can grow that percentage to more than half of these university students, or maybe to 3/4. And then we can say that now we are taking the right steps in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you very much, Aaron. What do you think, Anita?
This is what I said. Before we think of making e-learning better, getting gadgets, the government should make sure that they should find a way of getting students back to school. Because we well know how our system works, we well know how our government works. We know that they're not going to do it tomorrow, not next month, not next year, even other years. So let them make sure that students go back to school. Yeah, we understand, because if we manage to have the voting process go through, if we manage to have campaigns, how is it impossible for students to access schools? Because when we talk about students, we are seeing students who are deep in villages. People, even if the internet, even if whatever is, everything is put in place, some people cannot afford.
You actually realize that the COVID cases were lower during election campaigns.
Yeah, so true.
When schools are open.
If these people were able to make it happen for the elections, it can be made happen for the sake of our students being educated. We're having very many cases of teenage pregnancies. I've been when in a break I was sharing with these guys how in a family a 17-year-old boy impregnated 2 sisters, one 14 years, one 13 years. I think you see where we are going because of, I mean, yeah. So this is how far we have gone. And for as long as we are waiting for the government to bring on the gadgets, to make sure the internet, of which it is not going to still be fair for some of the people, let them make sure that the schools are open. They've, the vaccination is there, so they could vaccinate before. I think if they are serious, it couldn't even take a month for students to go back to school. So that is one of the things they can do. Following SOPs, part of the things they use for us to graduate, we graduated because we used that process.
Graduated virtually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but because still the internet, the e-learning could not work for us. Even when we went back to campus, we had to have lecturers lecture to us, like one-on-one, like in a classroom setting. So things are not going to work, and the education system is going to bleed until these people get serious and find better options. Because if students don't go back to school and we are all complaining about internet gadgets, which the government is not going to do any soon, I don't know where we are heading. Yeah, so for me, they should make sure students go back to school, because we now have the vaccine. I mean, they tried even when the vaccine wasn't yet. So they should make sure if it needs vaccinating each and every student or the teachers, let them do it. Some of our parents are teachers. They are not working. So for how long are we going to keep home? We are talking about internet. Even if they scrap off the tax, some parents cannot afford.
True.
So my say is still reopening schools should be considered in whatever the Minister of Education is thinking, and the team, they should think of reopening schools. It's the only way to go. As they open, they can think of how to make the e-learning better. That way it will work. But it will not work when students are seated home. Because by the time they introduce the e-learning, they make the e-learning better, most of the students will have dropped out.
Okay, true. Thank you for your submission. Now, in a number of interactions I've had with those that are still tied up in universities, they are complaining about the e-learning and also tuition. What should be subtracted? Should we subtract tuition since we are attending class online? Should the universities give us internet from the tuition we are paying to attend to online classes? What is your view about that?
I think it's very hard right now to determine whether university should downscale its tuition structure, because there is a lot of cost involved. There is a lot of reasoning involved. There are lecturers to pay. The school has to keep running, up and running, and all that. But maybe we can adopt having the institutions provide internet. I'm sure there is an institution that has been providing MBs, data bundles, for students to attend the virtual lessons. Yeah. I think it's one of the universities, and it's a newly, it's a new university. So I think we can look at some of the structures they have adopted and to see if we can incorporate them into some of it. But it would be very hard for private universities, because already there is a lot of loss making happening in that business. Sure. So it's really the work of government to make sure that people go to school.
Government Yambe. I'll get back to you on that. What do you have to say about it, Anita?
Well, this is what I say. It is so annoying that it's within the government institutions that we still have a lot of students complaining. It's actually funny that students in private universities are not suffering like those in private universities and other high school, primary, like the UPE. And so I don't know what is not happening, because anyway, in a university like mine, of recent actually, the guild president and the vice and other students were protesting against the functional fees. Like if you say we go for e-learning, we're going online, why are we paying the functional fees then? It's in a university of mine that these people had increased tuition by 15%. Why don't you reconsider that? Now that students are at home, why don't you reconsider and at least remove that increment you put, remove the functional fees? Maybe someone can start from there. Yeah, so I believe as if it's e-learning, then some of the fees is really not needed. Functional fees for what? If it's online, then that should be spared. This is a government institution, so I expect these people to understand. If it's private, you do not know how maybe the HM or the VC handles their things and stuff and all that. But this is government, so in institutions like, because they could start from that. Maybe the private institutions could borrow a leaf if they have help, of course. So functional fees, if it's to do with e-learning, I think that should be spared. At least a parent will also struggle with the rest of the things. Then the tuition increment, they can hold it for now. Maybe if things get better, they will rethink.
Okay.
And I don't know why you should even increase tuition in a government institution. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. Well, back to you, Government at Oyambe. Oftentimes, everything that is any chaotic incident that happens in Uganda, be it with the youth, with the old people, we have a cry out for help. Government at Oyambe. Now that both of you have fully graduated, I believe there are more that have also graduated. What next? Are we still going to cry out Government at Oyambe? Yes, we had our share of education. We went through the e-learning, we went through the physical, and now others are battling with the e-learning at the moment. But at the end of it all, you'll find that, damn, I'm done with school. What next? There are memes that were going all over the place during the graduation period. You're like, I need to sell my degree to someone. It is not, I don't need it.
Yeah, should we tell these people?
I know.
There? Oh, we should wait.
You know, what next? Either we are going through this education, as you earlier on mentioned, young people are child labor. A parent goes on and realizes you're good at keeping their shop back home. Why should you go through with education? And this very young person is also looking at a graduate who is planning to sell his degree online because they are jobless. What are we supposed to do as the young people to make sure we overcome this?
For the start, government is the heart of the plight of its people. And it's government policy that drives national development.
Sure.
That's through education, employment, and all that. But a notice to anyone who is going to graduate on Zoom, or anyone who hasn't graduated. Out there, you should know that there is unemployment waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. Because over and over again, there has been a pledge, there has been a promise to create jobs for young people, but it has not materialized. So there is unemployment, there is poverty, and those are realities that one has to face once they're out of school. But I implore young people to use the talents they have in this lockdown. As we wait on government to open, what are we doing as young people? What are we planning? How are we using our skills to harness our income, to secure our own plight at the end of this lockdown or out of school? So if you have a talent, explore it. If you need to learn something, go ahead and learn it. There are a lot of platforms you can use. You can read a book. There are a lot of books, self-help books, mind shaping books. There are a lot of, for those who can access the internet, there are a lot of videos on YouTube and other social media that you can explore and create a living for yourself, regardless of the times. A lot of people have adopted that system and it has worked. Yeah, so that's my message.
Thank you very much. Anita, what do you have to say? Should we still cry out to the government for jobs now that we have cried to them already for our education?
It's so unfortunate that even if you cried so hard, no one would call you for a job or anything, regardless of whether you have a first class, second class, or a pass. So I call upon all young people to be creative, be innovative. It is the way to go. But as we try, I'll still talk about the government because yes, we need support. Facebook is really down.
Yeah.
Most of us are suffering, including me, because my business is operating online. We've been using Facebook as a platform of marketing our stuff, so we have nothing to do anymore. Because first of all, the internet is high, and then Facebook is down. So we are confused. Even when you have an idea, you feel down, like you lose the morale. But yes, so of course, with time, I believe internet and all the other things will get sorted. As the government works on all those things, let that not be an issue. Wake up, know what you're good at, find out what you're best at. Everyone has what they can do best. I'm doing jewelry because I have passion in creativity and, you know, coming up with something new. So it could be singing, it could be art, it could be anything. It could even be selling clothes and what. It's not about, yeah, you might not be creative, but you could still think of something different. There are no jobs out here, people. You need to come out of your comfort zone, be creative, be innovative. And yeah, you never know. It is easy for someone to help you when you're somewhere than when you're nowhere. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Aaron and Anita. I hope you, as a young person, you have heard there are no jobs. Creativity is key. Creativity matters. Thank you very much for staying tuned to the Situation Corner. Today we're discussing the education and e-learning amidst the pandemic and post the pandemic, and also what we intend to do after attaining the e-learning, the e-degree, and definitely the physical degree that we also got. Thank you very much. Keep it locked onto the Situation Corner. Don't forget to subscribe on all our social media platforms. That is at Faraja Television on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is Faraja Television. Thank you for watching.